Hey, welcome to Taylor's Trick-Taking Table. I'm Table, and we started a new month, and I didn't tell what the name of the month is. We kind of already talked about it. We're doing hearts and hearts variants, and it's February, so you might think it's a pretty obvious portmanteau we might be using, and your mind's kind of in the gutter, and the channel here is way more highbrow than using what you might be thinking of. So I thought since it's a short month, it'd be really fun to actually do short stories as intros. So we're going to do kind of short month hearts. So we're going to do sharts as the name of the month. And you know, kids these days, they come up with crazy, vulgar, wacky words for things on Urban Dictionary. So I went to Urban Dictionary and I checked to make sure sharts is not bad in any way. And this is what I found. So as you can see, you know, shining heart. And so I hope we kind of just have shining heart moments on the channel, just a bunch of sharts that are just blasting out of us. So I wanted to start with a really quick short story, and the other ones will be about me. I thought this one would be fun. It's about a friend of mine who, you know, when people tell stories about people they know or friends, they kind of shy away from using real names. I'll use a real name now. I have the guts. So my friend Harry Potter, they were in middle school, and they had a really funny thing where they started using conditioner in middle school, but they didn't wash it out of their hair. As you can tell, I just got out of the shower. Maybe that's why I'm thinking about this story. But they didn't wash it out of their hair. And they were just convinced that puberty was hitting them in an intense way, and that their hair was just getting really greasy, and everyone around them was like, wow, your hair's just super, super greasy. And so once they hit high school, they realized you're supposed to wash out conditioner. You don't just put it on and then leave the shower. And they had wildly different perceptions of their hair after like 4 years of just using conditioner. So I thought it was a funny story. Maybe it's not too funny, but the next ones, they are about me, and they have a lot of Schadenfreude. Great game, but those will be at the start of later videos. And I know I'm just rambling a lot, and you're like, what's the game we're even doing today? Well, we're doing hearts variants, and specifically a tier list of hearts variants. I've realized there are a ton, and I played, I want to say like 10 or so of them, and we'll be covering more hearts variants that are in games like Royal Hearts, where in this one they have 4 hearts variants where each of the queens does something different. It's kind of each of them are hearts variants that you might be familiar with. So, for example, you might be familiar with the variant where the Jack of Diamonds is actually minus 10 points. So they put that in this game, but it's the Queen of Diamonds is minus 10 points. So that's kind of the shtick on here. So we'll be covering different hearts variants, ranking them on how much fun I think they are, how much I would play them over hearts, or just, you know, to spice up hearts. And we're gonna go not to the table or the room, because I'll just like chat. We're gonna go to my sock drawer because my room's a little messy, so not gonna want to clean up for the video. Sorry about that. So let's go to my sock drawer and I'll show you some different hearts variants and rank them. Hey, so here we are in front of the sock drawer here. And like we said, we're gonna do a tier list. It was interesting that looking at all these heart variants, I actually was reading one of the comments on the last video that said, actually, hearts is technically without the Queen of Spades, and that adding the Queen of Spades in itself is a variant. So that was pretty interesting, and I decided to play a game without the Queen of Hearts being in. And so you only got points from just the hearts, right? So only 13 points total in a hand. And it lost a lot of tension. It lost a huge amount of pace, and there weren't any like big moments. And shooting the moon was a little easier, right? Because there was one less card to capture. So there's kind of like a weird flow to not have the Queen of Spades. It kind of lost a lot of tension. I already said that, but a lot of what made hearts hearts to me was gone. So starting with a baseline of traditional hearts in the tier list, I'm going to give it D. It's hard to go back after the Queen of Spades is just such an important thing in every single hearts game that I've played up until this point. So then, speaking of hearts with a Queen of Spades, I gotta give S. It's just the best. So now that we have kind of this baseline here, we can throw in the different variants and see where they stack up. I thought it was interesting that someone named Stefan O'Sullivan in what is now a 15-year-old BGG thread brought up the idea that while Hearts is such an excellent game, I've come to learn that there's many variations, so I thought I'd go down a checklist of all the things that you should chat about when you play Hearts with strangers, which is funny because going back to the story I told of in high school playing and the person I played with threw the Queen of Spades in the first trick, it's one of the bigger things that I guess ask about if you're playing Hearts with strangers is, can you, I guess to quote them is, can you put dirt in the first trick? Which is a funny way to describe that, is like, are points valid in the first trick? This is going to be a start of what I've noticed a lot in terms of my opinion on this is I've played so much of Hearts in one way that it's hard to break that tradition and go back and really objectively look at a variant and wonder if it's better or worse. I personally think you add more interesting kind of texture when you can't throw dirt in the first trick, when you can't play any points to the first trick. It adds a lot of interesting choices on what to pass. I like the idea that like one club is safe, especially getting the ace of clubs. It's a nice kind of one thing to bank on as you're passing. And when there was dirt in the first trick, it made things a little too aggressive from the bat. And I know it's just one trick, but there is something to having one free trick and letting you do whatever you want in it. That is, it's just a bit freeing. So personally, I think no points in the first trick is where I would go. So I guess the variant is points in the first trick, and I'm putting that on, it's not the worst, I'll put it on D. The next variant is about passing. How do you pass? I saw passing one card instead of three. I saw not passing to the left or the right or across and just holding a lot. It's kind of interesting. I think I prefer the three passings, left, right, across, and then holding, because you get to interact with everyone at the table perfectly, right? So you never get in certain games where there's passing and you only pass to the left. You can kind of feel a bit jaded if you sit to the right of someone who's really good, or like, oh my gosh, this person just keeps passing good cards to that. You never have to feel like the game was swung by player seat. So that feels good to, in my mind, to pass to each player on a round. And then the hold, it's just such a different beast. So I've seen where people don't have the hold, and I missed it a lot. Having no hold changes the game up a lot. There's kind of an interesting thing you can do when there's holding, is you can, push the queen out more. You can lead a lot of spades if you don't have the queen to kind of force queen, which is interesting because no one was able to short suit or kind of pass the queen if they weren't long in spades. Or you can push yourself almost in more interesting ways because people are more in suit. So you might lead, ace of diamonds and king of diamonds more readily because it's probably going to go around once, more often than it would in a normal pass hand. So I love the hold. I don't want to always do the hold. I think that's a lot. It just changes the game up too much. But the flavor of a hold round and kind of how it mixes up play in the table is just so necessary. So passing one wasn't that interesting to me. That's like F tier. It was just like, I wish I was passing more, It was like giving you a taste of something without giving you the full thing. I'd rather just have the full thing. The way I play with passing three left, right, across, and then hold is just S tier. It's like, it's my favorite. I can't get past it. There's just so much to that choice. One of the variants was about leading, and I also prefer to lead the two of clubs. That, again, going back to the passing, leads a lot of interesting things. I think it's kind of brutal when someone passes the two of clubs and then the ace of clubs. It's just a very comically rude thing to do, and I'll do it sometimes. I think there's like some kind of cheekiness to it that I enjoy, and that's lost when you can just lead whatever. And leading whatever allows hearts to come out sooner and allows points to start getting out there. And I kind of do like hearts where the points don't come out right away. There's kind of a funny moment when two of clubs is led, someone wins it, they lead like a eight of diamonds, and then two people go, 5, 6 of diamonds, and then the last person has like a heart or the queen or something, and you're like, oh my gosh, on the second trick I won points on like a low diamond. It's a funny moment that I think is a bit lost when you can kind of lead whatever and break hearts right away. And I feel bad. I'm like a broken record, just keep saying that I like the original variants more. But I hope I have some justification to it, because I feel like there are so many interesting wrinkles to this formula of hearts that I like so much that justifies my preference for it. So I guess getting back to leading whatever, it's F tier. Oh, everything I don't like is just F tier. This is so bad. Here we are at a variant that actually I don't play with, and it started to be really interesting to me. It was kind of a slight one. It's if you shoot the moon, does everyone else get 26? Or do you yourself get minus 26? And I saw a few different variants on that. One of them was you're forced one way or the other. One of them is the person who shoots the moon gets to choose, which is super helpful, right? Because if they're not winning, they don't want to make someone go over 100. They'd rather themselves just go down 26, you know, to keep the game lasting longer. I think the only con of this is you lead to the potential of like the game could last forever, right? Someone keeps shooting the moon, gets minus 26, and then the game just technically can last forever. And I know that really wouldn't happen just because the game flow just doesn't lend itself to someone shooting the moon all the time. But I think the choice is interesting. So I was kind of hemming and hawing on that. I think I do still prefer that if you shoot the moon you're forced to 26. But to give the player who did it more choices is cool, because them 26 down is situational and very useful. So it's cool to give the person who just did such a crazy feat, which isn't like too crazy. Shooting the moon's like not that rare, but to give them another added like strategic element of how do you want to use it, you know? So I think being able to choose whether you want to go minus 26 yourself versus everyone else gets 26, I'll give that a B. The first variant that I didn't play with, and I was like, that's kind of cool. I like that. Then I played with one kind of in a similar vein where if you hit 100 exactly, you actually go down to 50. It was fun. It adds to tension. It didn't happen like too much, so it wasn't a big issue to worry about like adding too much to game length. It was just, I think, a little gaming-y to do in Hearts, because in my mind Hearts is very avoidance or like take everything. And to get it to where players near the end were like, I'll take a few, just felt a little un-Hearts-like. It was interesting, I liked it. It's kind of like I played the game Cabo or Golf. A similar vibe. If you hit a certain number, you actually reset. In that one, it kind of happens a lot because you are getting middling points, so you can kind of hit that 100 easily. Hearts, you know, if someone kind of sluts you to 13 or the queen, you kind of jump, right? But it is interesting because the hearts are 1 point, so you could kind of like finagle it. It wasn't bad, I just wasn't too heartsy to me. I'll give it like a C. Then I played team version, and it was really interesting actually. How you work off your partner and try to get them to intuit what you're going for. There were a couple times, because it's pretty easy to shoot the moon. You just need between half the people at the table, you and your partner, to get all the points. That's not too bad. But there were times when I was trying to shoot the moon, my partner just like didn't get it. They were actively losing points when I was trying to win them. Like I would like win a couple points and be like, see, I'm winning points when I probably could not win points, like wink wink nudge nudge. And they would like take the lead from me and lead a different suit that I was in, or that I was short in, and then I couldn't get the lead again. And yeah, so it's interesting to try to intuit off your partner's plays and see where they're going. And what's cool is, I think my favorite part of teams is usually, you know, you pass left, right, across, hold. And hold is one of the special ones. You're like, ooh, hold. In teams, passing across is fascinating, because that's the one hand, the one pass round, right? Where you get to communicate something. You can pass them, you know, a few high or low, or like try to split yourself. Or it was interesting using that to communicate with your partner as the one time you can do it before a hand. So it made passing across really, really fun. I'll give teams a B. It was interesting. I really liked it actually. Next was something called Dutch Hearts, where the premise is a ton of cards are removed. In fact, the 2 to 6 of each suit are removed from the deck. Hearts are still 1 point, but the Queen of Spades is 5, and the Jack of Clubs is 2. So you have really small hands. It felt very limited. It was just like, okay, this happens, this happens, this happens. There wasn't any passing, so it's pretty boring. I give it an F. Then I played Black Maria, where the variant is the Queen of Spades is still 13 points, but the King of Spades is worth 10, and then the Ace is worth 7. You kind of just treat spades as like this brutal suit that you really don't want anything to do with. It also disabled shooting the moon, so that last part in and of itself is kind of like, I don't really know how I feel about this variant. It was kind of interesting. The passing got a little fraught because the king and the ace are already bad because they might capture the queen, but to make them super duper bad was kind of interesting, but it's like, in the long run, it was kind of just boring losing shooting the moon, so I'll give it like a D. Then I played the high hearts variant, and the premise is hearts are still 1 point each. There's the queen of spades still, but the ace of hearts is 5, the king of hearts is 4, queen of hearts is 3, jack of hearts is 2. So it makes the face cards and the ace kind of a little scarier in hearts. It was interesting. It added a little texture, a little flavor. I don't know if it added enough to like warrant the change. Hearts is like the typical like ease of play, so tack something on that made you really like have to be a little bit more considerate was interesting, but I don't know if it was worth kind of the slowdown in a way. So I'll give it C. Then we played Pip, and oof. So Pip is where the number on the card is the number of points it is. So for example, like an 8 is worth 8 points, a 9 is worth 9, 10 is worth 10. These are in hearts, right? It's kind of interesting because like if you're short suited, like what do you throw into the trick? Like do you throw the 10 or do you throw the 4 of hearts? You can kind of like have a little bit more agency. You can't just throw someone a point. You can like choose how much pointage you're throwing out there. But this made games crazy high in score, and there was just way too many swings, and it didn't really feel heartsy. It felt chaotic and kind of goofy in a way. Especially like if you did really, really well and then you miss one trick, and that one trick has the king and the queen of hearts, and you're like, I just won so many more points than someone who was not really doing the best the whole game. They just happened to take lower hearts than I did. So it felt kind of, okay. So I'll give that one like a D. Hooligan is standard, so hearts are 1 point each, queen is 13. Then there's a hooligan that's the 7 of clubs that's worth 7 points. It's just silly. I didn't really like it. Especially when clubs have points, it kind of adds dirt to the first trick, which is, again, not something I particularly like. So I'll give that one like a F. Then I played Spot, which is like Pip, where all the hearts are their rank, so like the 4 of hearts is worth 4 points. But the only difference is the queen of spades isn't 13, it's 25. So this one was just even crazier, so I'll give this one an F as well. Then the classic one that I think most people are like, hey, this one's actually pretty good. It's where the jack of diamonds is minus 10 points. And I really, really liked it, actually. I'm gonna give it an A. I think there's something cool to add to diamonds to make them stand out. So you got hearts, obviously the hearts are hearts. And then clubs are lead, which is important. Spades are all about the queen. So diamonds having a nice little fancy touch was cool. I liked it. It led to some really interesting things. And honestly, when you shoot the moon and you take the jack of diamonds, and so you get minus 10 and everyone else gets 26, that is such a good feeling. That is like a crazy good, whoo. It's like shooting the sun. It felt great. There was a small variant where actually instead of the jack of diamonds is minus 10, it's the 10 of diamonds, which is minus 10. That one's like a B. I just think it's so funny because it's so close to the other variant that I don't even know why it was really listed. I guess it technically makes more sense because it's a 10 of diamonds, so it's worth minus 10 points, so like that made sense. And it was kind of cool to have it be a little bit lower in the ranking, so it wasn't as guaranteed of a trick. The jack can still win it, but in the whole scheme of things, is it really that different? Funny enough, in Royal Hearts, the jack of diamonds isn't really in it, it's the queen of diamonds. It's called like best friend, and so that one's minus 10. And that has a bit of a different feel too, because you only have to pay attention to the king and the ace being out, and you can lead this and really win a trick. So that was kind of interesting to see such a high jack of diamonds variant, and it worked. It was just like a little too high for me. And then, kind of already talked about this, but it has the most evil, where the queen of spades is just like brutal. And that one, it turns into 26 instead of 13, so that's just brutal. Queen of clubs, I don't know how I feel about this variant. All it does is it makes the queen of spades, if you capture it, and this, it makes the queen of spades worth 0. Kind of like a nullifier. And then the last one, which the 10 of clubs, and what it does is it times your points by 2, no matter how many points you get. Say you got like 5 points in hearts, and then you took the 10 of clubs, you get 10 points in hearts. And if you get the queen and the clubs, it's like, ooh, it's pretty bad. It was interesting. I liked it more than allowing dirt in the trick, because since it is in the trick, and it is technically dirt, like you don't really want it. It was interesting to win it and then just have the tension just be like super crazy. And every heart you took was like double, and it just felt really brutal. I think it suffers a bit from having crazy scores. Hearts with 26 points in a hand feels measured and has a nice rhythm to it. So when you take the queen and a few hearts and then someone gives you the 10 of clubs, you're just like, oh my gosh, that is half the game in one hand. So it felt a little too brutal to me. And Royal Hearts has kind of that. It's the special Queen of Hearts where times by 2 the hearts you get. It's interesting. I don't think it's a bad variant. I'll give it like a C, maybe like a B. I'll give it like a B, the 10 of clubs doubling points. I did try one thing where I tried all the variants that I liked together just to see what it was like. So that's 10 of clubs, which doubles any points. Jack of diamonds, which is -10. And you get to choose what you want if you shoot the moon. It was kind of insane. Like if you get the Jack of diamonds and the 10 of clubs, you got -20 points. Like it was really interesting to have a lot of these different variants work off each other. I personally think it was a little too insane. There's games that are just like kind of chaotic. Even with just Jack of diamonds, I played a game where the game ended and I lost. I got -3 and the other person got like -4. And then the other 2 people triggered it around 100 points, right? It was kind of crazy to play a game of hearts and get -3 as your score and still lose. Because the Jack of diamonds has just such a funny way to throw a wrench in like classic hearts play. One quick note about the ×2 on the 10 of clubs. Like I said before, it's kind of nice to have different suits have different powers. Spades be like the queen, hearts obviously the hearts, diamonds be the -10 points, and then clubs be like the doubler. So that was fun. I think it adds like the most chaos I could probably handle though. And playing them all together was like kind of insane. Those are like really fun games because it's just like so much could happen. But what's interesting is at the very end, I think honestly I just like original hearts the most. You know, flavor to your liking. I could see myself playing a lot more of the Jack is -10. That was kind of cool. It helps players kind of get back into it too, like something to go for if they're getting really high up. And honestly, shooting the moon and getting the Jack of diamonds is like, whew, I've already said that, but like, that is such a great feeling. Anyway, so there's the very rough, very goofy Taylor's tier list of hearts variants. Anyway, catch y'all later.